Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second panel of the day. And we have a very interesting topic for discussion here, and I'm sure ably supported by the esteemed panel here with very diverse experiences, different industries, different product categories. So I'm looking forward to a very good conversation here. What we really want to do is to look at one of the biggest challenges that the consumer industry is looking at from today's perspective, but also from a future perspective. And that issue is every business needs scale because scale helps you to overcome a lot of the business operational challenges and helps you to build a long-term sustainable business. But then it also has to be done with agility. And what we are looking at right now is the challenge of managing agility with scale, right? So, what we would like to do is to learn from all of you on how your businesses are looking at this. So let me start with you, Anubhav. What are you seeing from your business perspective? What is changing in the consumer landscape as a consumer, as a shopper? What are you seeing? And what has been your response as an organization to manage? Because you still want to build scale, you still want to grow the business. So, what's your take on this?
Thank you for the question. Let me answer it in two pieces. One is obviously as a shopper, as a consumer, and then what are we doing from a business organization point of view. So one, as a shopper consumer, what I'm seeing is the entire channel landscape is changing. We started, and I remember because I've been now into the, I would say, working space for 16 years. When we started, general trade was the biggest channel. Then modern trade came in and everyone said that general trade will struggle and modern trade would be like beating general trade by hands down. Obviously modern trade flourished, general trade flourished, and then e-commerce came in, and then that same discussion happened. And now with quick commerce coming in, that same discussion again is happening. What is quick commerce eating into? Is it eating into e-commerce? Is it eating into modern trade, or is it eating into general trade? So that is how, as a shopper, my journey has also evolved significantly. What, as a business unit or as an organization, we in India are doing. I'll give you one example because this is something that the business that I lead, which is e-commerce. What we have done is, one, with obviously the evolving space, e-commerce and quick commerce has to get that advantage. That is one. But the other difference is with the new startups coming in, obviously working in an MNC or how an MNC operates is very different versus a startup. Within an MNC, then you'll have to create that culture of how you work in an agile way like a startup does. So for one example, what we have done in Kimberly-Clark is e-commerce as a vertical is not just a sales channel, it is a separate business unit. So for example, what I manage is a business unit with an end-to-end P&L responsibility. There are multifunctional team reporting directly into me. What that then leads to do is I can work the organization or the sub-channel like a business unit, take those calls in an agile way that is possible, and move ahead quickly on it. That is just one example that we are doing.
Yeah, that's a great example. We talk about even in our classroom sessions about how the ability to take quick decisions, operate like a SBU literally, and therefore be more true to what needs to be done rather than playing the functional game of this is my job, this is your job. So that's instead of throwing things over the wall, so that's a good example of doing this. Um, because when we look at what is really changing, we look at consumer landscape is changing, right? So there's a lot about consumer that's changing, in brands, how they're looking, uh, value, how they're looking at even other things like we spoke about that in the morning session about not just people but also planet, right? So there is a lot of focus on delivering on the larger expectation from the consumer and not just a product and a solution that delivers to their expectation. So, that brings me to, Amol, since you are very close to that topic, what is your observation on what's changing? And as Hershey's, what are you trying to do to make sure that Hershey stays, front and center in that game and is able to, build the scale and not get bogged down with these as hurdles. Look at these as opportunities. So, your thoughts on that?
I think the key part is the consumer landscape is changing. The way people used to think about food or FMCG is very different. People are not looking, so India is still evolving. If you see the chocolate consumption per year is 200 grams, pretty low compared to all European and US market. But the urban population in India is very different. The rural population in India is very different. And as a company, we always look into both the angle. You cannot be limiting yourself only to the urban consumption and forget about the rural because they contribute to the 80% of your business. What changing is consumers started looking at sugar consumption. There are a lot of, so media and the new generation, there's a lot of knowledge being shared across the media, something wrong, something right. But I'll not go into that space, but I think what good for you is something which is evolving over the period of time. There are segment who talks about healthy. There are segment who looks for what is good for me because they don't want to get rid of a chocolate, but they want to eat okay. What I can see as a chocolate with a less sugar. What I can see a confectionery with a different proportion. What I can see a drink with a less sugar or anything which is on a snack front also. You might see a lot of brand evolving in a baking category rather than an oil fried one. Now, agility is a part of our game at this moment, and uh, at this juncture, I think there are a lot of startup which is coming in, and there is a multinational. So, we as a company want to build a brand which sustain for a years. It's a 125-year-old company, and we want to create something which will sustainable, and we feel responsible because we are producing food. Now, when you are in a game of producing food, you need to be equally conscious that whatever you are giving to the consumer has to be safe. Now you cannot forget that. And I'm quality and food safety lead for the business. So I keep on enforcing myself saying that I'm a gatekeeper for the organization to ensure that what is going out of my factory or to the market meets the consumer expectation. That's one thing which you need to keeping in mind. So I think one of the key thing is what is optimize and a compromise. So you need to optimize your process to ensure that you work with agility, but not compromise. The day you compromise, you will collapse after that. So keep that in mind when it comes to another multinational. Just to give you a glimpse, so we work much ahead of the curve. So what startup can deliver in 1 year, we need 3 years. Just an example, but we work 3 years before to make sure that if startups coming with something, the multinational immediately respond by because they have a pipeline in place to ensure that the products
Are
are
you
in.
are you seeing that the change is faster now? Are you seeing that the regulations are changing faster now?
Yeah.
Is that a trend that you see?
So the food authority in India is evolving very rapidly. The amount of focus they are putting across the industry is huge. The regulations are changing rapidly. Awareness is changing rapidly. A small case can become a big in a day with Facebook and media. So you need to be equally conscious. We cannot come under pressure of delivering a product which startup is doing at this moment. At the same time, we need to ensure that we support the commercial team to ensure that they are up to the speed with the compete with the startups. So that's a part of a game at this moment. There is nothing right and wrong in it. The only thing I can say that don't forget the basics. That's the core. So if you focus on a core and move ahead, you will be stable.
Thanks for that. So we've looked at see the consumer that's changing. Let's also look at the channel, and when I say channel, it's also the supply chain, right? So the whole chain. And Mitra, you've been a great champion of Made in India, and you are very passionate about that, and I know that you do a lot of mentoring around that as well. So tell us about how are you looking at Make in India as the key to driving agility in the business for yourself and as an industry, as an ecosystem. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. So I think I'm on the other side of the coin where we are very agile. I was just telling him I don't know if I should still call myself a startup, but we are definitely not an MNC. Somewhere in the middle, so people need to figure out a word. But agility is our strength. We move really fast. Though he says we'll catch up with a fight with a startup, I would think it's really hard to fight with startups because they would produce it in a month, not a year. They would run behind it. There are no policies, procedures that are so stringent that you have to get approvals from top down. Anybody in my team can just call me. We're sitting in a meeting, just getting it done with the next hour. There are no red tape or that kind of delays that will happen in a startup. Making in India, especially, was not for agility. It has given us a lot of agility. I'll get to it. Making in India, we've started making in India even before the government has brought out that slogan of let's make in India. It was because we wanted to control quality. We've started the company, we wanted to make in India from day one. We could not. Not young, probably old 20-year-olds that had dreams of making in India, but we figured we both didn't have the expertise. So we went to China, sat with the companies that produce these products, but gave them our requirements and started getting products developed. But we've realized we can only give quality to the consumer, and that is the backbone of building a brand. Without a product, you cannot build a brand. Just being a trading company, you can create a brand, run it really fast, grow it really fast for a few years by investing in marketing, but you cannot create brands like they have that will last for decades and generations. Yes. So product is the core. So we've been working on that for years. And in 2020, we were finally able to move the entire process to India. This has given us a lot of competitive edge, not just agility, because we are not so dependent on China for few raw materials still, yes, which we are working on. But if the government, changes regulations or supply chain during COVID, there were ships that were stopped intentionally to hike up the price of logistics. A container that would probably cost us, let's say, roughly around 100 rupees today, they were charging 500. But we could not pass on that increase of price to the consumer. The brand had to absorb it. So now it has made us less dependent, not just on other countries, geopolitical level also, it has made us more or lesser dependent. That is the kind of agility that making in India has brought in for us.
And that kind of agility, I'm seeing that you're hinting is also helping you to sustain the brand. So it's, if you were to just do trading, that's a short-term game. But if you were really interested in building a business, which...
Today, including the biggest competitor in our industry, our cost of goods is almost 25% cheaper than the biggest competitor that buys probably 10 times of volume. Just because we hold it end to end and, we are able to bring in those efficiencies into the system.
Fantastic. That's a big story on why Make in India and Made in India is a big, big theme for a lot of businesses here. And even for global businesses, they would at some point in time, having established here, they would want to set up the factory because you want to have that kind of a control. Yatin, you are in a very interesting business, and we've had lots of chats during the interval. I'm not sure if you have. Why don't you talk about what your product does? And I really wanted to also hear from you on what are your consumer insights, which is helping you to develop this product, which is so differentiated that there's nobody else that's doing it, right? So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. Hello. So, so we are building a cooking robot. So essentially it's a micro-sized device where you load the ingredient, command it to cook. It do the recipe step by step and cook completely automatically. So once you load in, you can go to gym, you can go to yoga. It will cook for you. So it can make your sabji, dal, pastas, your curries, your Chinese, Vietnamese. So we have like 14 plus cuisine fitted in a one unit. It has 300 plus recipe already. Yeah, so that's the product. We call it not cooking robot. So we have delivered first lot to Bangalore, and now we are expanding all over India. So how we went about development process, right? So first of all, it actually started with my own problem. I'm a good to settle in Bangalore, and my struggle with food is what inspired me to solve this problem, right? Um, so the first thinking was, is this problem only for me or it is for others also, right? So initially all the consumer insight came in where I called upon all the friends, understood their food behavior and uh, figured out that most of people when they move to a new city, food become a problem for them. A new city, new country, whatever it could be, right? So food is a problem. Like you have maids coming in, but you don't get the taste, the diet you want to follow. You don't get flexibility there. And somewhere there is always a compromise. So that's where we started building this product. Along the way, so our idea was simple, right? Whenever we meet someone, our conversation started with this. What is your typical breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like most of time now, I can see the face and say what this person is eating. So it was very ad hoc, but it is very insightful. Like talk to people, then spend some time at a supermarket at checkout counters, what they are taking out. See, by let's say initially for us, like epigamia was and raw price, where our initial thing like why would people, what kind of people are adopting this and why they are adopting it. So we started building those cohort in our mind and continuous speaking, the cohort evolved continuously. So also we kept on doing from 2021, we have been doing user trials. So we give the product to user, they keep it, we charge them on weekly fees. So they use it for a week and then they give us like they renew. That means the user is liking the product. If they don't renew, we feel that there is a shortcoming, right? Um, so that's how we can continuously gather the insight. So initially our idea was dual working no kids will be the first early adopter of this product. But when we started doing it, we realized that with kid segment is what is converting better. Because we learned that dual kid, no kids means still they are like living couple type, like there are no structure to the family, and this product is suited for where there's a family is having a little structure. So that got evolved, and product wise also we evolve a lot. So initially our idea was, does the product need a display or not? Like, or a mobile app is sufficient. We put a fine display initially. But when we did the trial, people were predominantly using the device display. So then we had to increase the size of the display, improve the user interface. So continuously we have kept on learning and putting in the product. The painful part is hardware development is slow. Like it is every iteration, like it is very highly iterative process, and every iteration takes months. So we have to build, like every revision we learn, we put it and then revise again, put it in. For us, the biggest factor where it should be food safe, meaning there should not be any place where food go. And like our biggest challenge was ensuring the food safety and usability. Meaning there should not be any place where food goes in where it's not cleanable, and something should, like there's a mechanical device, lot of movements are there, so no particle should go in food, and that's where our most of design iteration actually happen.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think that kind of research is something that's possible because you are in a place where you're doing the startup. You're literally in the inventor of the product, right? So, but a lot of other businesses, especially when we talk about fast-moving consumer goods, and on an ongoing basis as you're scaling up the business, sometimes you do rely a lot on data, right? So data and analytics. So let me understand how is Kimberly-Clark looking at data? What are you learning from data, and what has been your journey on evolving the way you look at data and the kind of insights that you're able to pull out from there?
Yep. So data is something that at least I am very passionate about. Coming from an engineering background, obviously data is something that I enjoy, and that kind of leads to the work that I do. A few things that at least, and before coming into what we are doing, let me give you some statements that my earlier managers have told and that kind of stuck to me. One of the things that probably I still remember, one of my ex-managers, or he was the MD of PNG when I was there in PNG, said that if you have data come in, other than that, then it's just an opinion. Your opinion, my opinion, probably I am much experienced than you, my opinion is much more valuable. So that is how important data is. What we are doing in Kimberly-Clark, a few things that we are doing. One is, currently if you see, there is no dearth of data that is available. The challenge that most of the organization feel is there is lot of data. So what is more important is of how do you use the data to come up with insights, and that is where an individual of teams that are coming in, making the data as organized as it can be, so that then the leaders can take a call is very important. A few examples that I'll give. One is, for example, on e-commerce, the channel that I work upon. There are a lot of third-party vendors that are there, a lot of startups that are there who are giving you, sharing that data. For example, working just in Kimberly-Clark, I won't know what my competitor is doing, which SKU of the competitor is growing fast, what and where are they spending monies upon. But now with the data available via this third-party data, we can get all those information and make the necessary calls that are there. That is one. The second is, obviously with AI ML technologies coming in, what becomes very important is of how do you use it. For example, in an e-commerce environment, the number of variables are so many that you can't even think of. The variable can be traffic. How is the organic traffic coming in? How is your paid traffic coming in? How are you reacting to it? What is your pricing? What is your competitor's pricing? Are you out of stock, in stock? So the number of variables are so many that an individual just on an Excel sheet cannot churn that data to bring in the insights. So what we are doing is working with our in-house team, which is based out of Bangalore, to use all the AI ML technologies that are there to then bring up with answers of what is the consumer asking for, or what is the biggest driver, which is the biggest priority driver for the consumer or the shopper to make that call. At what difference do I make? So for example, if I reduce my pricing by 1%, what would the offtake increase to? Similarly, if I increase my traffic by 1%, what will it lead to? Those are the stuff that we are currently working upon. I won't say we are there, obviously baby steps that we are taking right now, of how do we use that, work on it, and then become better as a business, and in turn help the business grow.
Yeah. So in the morning discussion also, we spoke about how this is a journey, right? So AI is not fully rolled out yet. As we speak, there's work that's happening, and therefore it's a journey. So you have already started the journey on that, but obviously there is there will be learnings along the way, and you will.
So that is where obviously an MNC helps. Obviously startup gives you the agility. MNCs help in a way because we don't have to do everything on our own. Obviously there is an in-house team sitting in Bangalore who are data scientists trained to do this. Obviously those are the people much better experts than what I can do from a data point of view. And which is what we use. It is now up to the business leaders of how do we give the problem statements to them so that then we can get the right answers.
Absolutely. So that's a great point. The questions still have to come from the business. The answers can be automated. The answers can come from analytics and AI. But really, what are you trying to understand or learn, or what are you trying to ask is something that you still Mithura, let me come to you because your business is a very D2C-led business, right? So how are you looking at your channel expansion strategy, which straddles both agility as well as growth that you're looking for? So what has been your journey? What have you learned as you've been scaling your business?
For us, the biggest challenge when we've started off and for a good number of years has been to be able to even touch the retail market. And we're still, like a like still at baby steps right there. E-commerce has been a very good platform that we could go compete with those big brands, be it, you know, a Samsung, a OnePlus, a Realme. We were able to go in and compete with all these brands. And today, Indian brands in our category hold 80% of the market share. E-commerce has helped with that because we could directly reach the consumer. However, once e-commerce was done, now quick commerce, though it comes in, we kind of see it as probably it's taking share as a mixture from a little bit from retail and a little bit from e-com. D2C has been a very chaotic ride. It's very expensive to build a brand on D2C. Though people think that we don't have to pay, you know, that hefty margins that we give the retailer or we give the platforms, to acquire these consumers is a very hefty, expensive process. And also, he was mentioning the data that they have available. We actually depend on MNCs for the data. Like if you're working with Flipkart or an Amazon, they provide us that data because we don't have that resources to go build that huge network. Again, it's a step by, we are in a much better place now. Like day one, it was probably just Excels and Tally for a good number of years. Now, Indian expansion, we see as a retail still being a challenge because it's a very expensive channel in a different way that you have to have huge teams always on the foreground competing. Now, I'm not reaching the consumer. I'm actually convincing the retailer and the distributor who is much more comfortable saying, I might as well carry a Samsung. I might as well, you know, carry a Realme. It's much more easier for me to carry those brands. How we have been navigating the challenge is to reach out to our consumer. Like everybody sitting here in this room is our consumer. We've reached out to them, marketed to them using digital sources, spoken to them better than all the big conglomerates so that they are walking into retail and are asking for the brand. That has given us a better opportunity to get into retail. Apart from that, we are also looking at international markets. Mivi has the advantage of manufacturing. Right now, we are in our discussions with Target, Walmart, for manufacturing their brand, not with Mivi's logo, but their logo. We are also using our capabilities to manufacture for global brands and to bring, because they're looking to move their manufacturing from China to India to a good extent. And we are the only ones that they could find as an ODM in this category. So that has been one channel of expansion for us. However, frankly speaking, retail is still, we are not where we want to be. We want 20-25% of our retail, of our business to come from retail. We are probably around 8% today. So that is something we still need to figure out.
And that's still an opportunity, right? I mean,
it's a huge opportunity still, yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, so that's a very interesting perspective because a lot of times when we think of FMCG, we take it for granted that there's a distributor, there's a distribution, there is, right? And a lot of the D2C brands, with the way they've built up, is also very interesting. It comes from a very different perspective, as you've just heard. And again, the journey there is you start from here and then you have to build this, right? So it's in a way a reverse of what is happening otherwise. Amol, can you speak to, is there any role of technology that helps you to manage compliance in a global organization like yours, where you have footprints across different markets with different regulation? So I'm also looking at the ability to be agile when it comes to being compliant and being able to therefore manage things at scale, right? So is there any work that your organization is doing in that?
I think data is something which is available across now, whether it is a technical versus the function I lead, the quality, food safety, and regulatory compliance. What help us at this moment when you work in a global organization or when you try to ensure compliance across the region? I think we as a company mostly export product from US to import products from US to the region. Now ensuring compliance in every country is very difficult. And we are as a company liable for ensuring that whether it is a small country or a big company, the regulation has to be followed. product food safety has to be moved. What we do is basically, there are a lot of, again, a lot of external consultants who provide us the data in terms of a compliance. Now, we cannot have a person sitting every country to analyze what compliance needs to be required for that country. We utilize them, use their expertise to understand what is the compliance gap requirement, how we can manage, like on a label. So there are a lot of requirement on a label for a food product. Every country has a different requirement. Now, how we manage it? We have a global database in terms of managing that label artwork, how the regulation gets changed. We have a system in terms of ensuring that every compliance gets changed in every country, get reported to the leadership team. How we become work ahead of time. So normally regulations, so you guys all know, it doesn't happen just by chance. Like whenever the regulation comes or authority comes with the regulation, they give you time of 2 years or 3 years. And you need to start working around it. And that's where our role plays, to keep on talking to the management, saying that this is coming, this is what we are seeing as a challenge, this is how we need to navigate. So there we really need all consulting, data analytics, AI. We are not up to the speed when I say AI, because of course AI is something which is still evolving. People have still doubt whether they are giving the right answers at this moment or not. But things are going to be very centralized over the period of time, and with COVID we learn that nothing is impossible. You can sit in house and work anywhere in the world. So that's where we need to evolve ourselves as a compliance leader and make sure that you use the data across the country to make the compliance happen. But still, it's a challenging front. We are, I will say that we are not at that stage where we need to be with the way the data analytics for the market and other stuffs are there.
Right. Yeah. So Yatin, I mean, the fact that you are a startup and you're kind of in a very initial phase of scaling it up, when you look at the bigger, companies, multinationals or local companies, where do you see the advantage in your model of working versus the others, from the specific perspective of where do you see you being more agile and also the opportunity to build the product that allows you to scale? So what where are your advantages in this game?
So actually our biggest advantage is like bigger companies, but like it's not possible for bigger companies to do innovation like this, right? Because they sit in the meeting, there is a all stakeholder. Everyone will not get convinced that something like this has to be brought in, and 5-6 years of R&D has to be put in. It doesn't happen, right? And they will start considering us, this category itself, when category is big enough, maybe $10 million category it becomes, then this company will start thinking about it, right? So our capability lies in, and we know that hardware can be replicated very easily, right? So our ability to differentiate for long term lies in having that AI component where, so what happens in our case, there's a visual intelligence, the camera, the sensors, temperature sensors and other sensors are judging what is happening in the pan. And they make a decision, right? So it says like onions are golden brown, or your curry is cooked, your rice is cooked. So all those AI capabilities that we are building is going to be the differentiator. Second differentiator we have to create is the entire marketplace of recipe makers, right? So how Apple has iOS, we want to do a food OS where anyone can create and put the recipes, and once we have a large number of people as a recipe creator, it will become a differentiator for us, right? So that's the two things we are building up so that when other companies realize it and they start developing it, maybe let's say we have taken 6 years, but when LG wants to do it, right? So it will take 2 to 3 years for them to develop this replicate the hardware. Right? After that, is our software and other capabilities what going to differentiate the.
Right. Mithila, you want to add to that as a startup? Where do you see yourself? So you spoke about Samsung and the other, big players, whether Indian or multinational. Where do you see your competitive advantage as a startup, specifically with respect to agility? I mean, how are you looking at agility as a way to build your business and scale it up?
Our advantage has been in value proposition. The reason we've started Vivi is also because we saw a gap which was not being catered to by any of the global brands, and there was no Indian brand at that point of time, which was taking, we have a very huge consumer base, but all the products in our category that are served are made for the Western markets. We have a very different taste, we have a very different environmental conditions. None of that is taken into consideration. A product made for the West, like a simple example, we love a lot of bass. Like everything has to have that thump, or songs are that way. That's our music preference.
Right.
A basic audio signature curve was also not being changed for the taste of Indians. So the value proposition that we've been giving the customer, which is a product made for the Indian needs and preferences. Like for example, a cable that we've made a 6-feet cable because our sockets are generally a little far away. That was our first product that we launched. So things like that, our voltage fluctuations are very heavy. Now they're working, but if you used Western chargers before, like they would go for a toss within a few days. We had to have very strong capacitors in place to handle those fluctuations. So then it was for needs. Then from there we've evolved to preference of what is it that the Indian consumer wants, and then being able to offer that within a very good price. That affordability factor that kicked in, where not everybody is willing to spend 20,000 rupees on a pair of earbuds, nor can we afford to as a country to a large extent. We were able to replicate a very good quality of sound, a very good product at a fraction of a cost. That was one of our biggest differentiators till date. Now that we've reached a stage, a decade old, now we are actually working on products that don't exist in the space at all. We are not making, you will see few launches which will be world's first launches in the next few years coming from the brand.
Wow. That's very impressive, and we're looking forward to those first to the world launches as well. Anubhav, what about you? So when you look at competition, right, what worries you about you being not agile enough? So what are your fears about agility, if I were to put it that way?
So one, obviously, the fear is that whoever is first in the market will get that advantage. I'll give you an example within the diaper category. A long back example, probably it happened 20 years back. I was still not working in the diaper category then, but this happened. The entire diaper category, the baby diaper category, was a tape diaper. So the tape diaper is you have to make the baby lie down on the bed, then apply the tape, and that is how the baby was there. Suddenly what happened is Mammy Poco came in and they started the pants diaper. The category shifted from a 0% pants diaper, now the entire category is 95% pants diaper. That is how it shifted. So one obviously is you'll just not have to think what the competition is doing right now. You'll have to think 5 years, 10 years down the line, what more can come in. I'll give you an example, and this is where obviously it helps also in some way. In the diaper category itself, continuing that same example, there are tiering of diapers. There is a tier 1, which is very basic, low tier diaper, tier 2, tier 3. Where India currently is a tier 2 diaper. What some of the MNCs, including us, are doing is launching a tier 3 diaper. Where China is right now is a tier 9 diaper. So that is the difference in the product quality that a lot of these companies working in China has. Some advantage that we get is obviously we can copy paste a lot from what our organizations are doing. But irrespective of that, a big challenge that we face is with these startups coming in are obviously coming in at a very cheaper cost versus what we can afford, because obviously we'll have some raw material costs coming in, purchase from XYZ country, we'll have some system processes coming in, we'll have a manpower, etc. And that is where the challenge comes in. What then becomes very important is of how do we keep on innovating, delighting the consumers much more versus what some of the local competition can do, but as also at a cost which is much more affordable to the consumer. So it is not that easy. Obviously, as I'm saying, it might sound easy, but it is very difficult to keep on innovating the product, but at a much cheaper cost to the consumer, so that then the consumer is ready to pick and choose your brand.
Yeah. So, Amol, I'm looking at you because, one of the things that is always held against big businesses is that they're too slow, right? And one of the people in the room who typically gets blamed are people who are on the compliance side, right? That you are holding us back, right? Let us do it. This is what the market wants. Look at how fast competition is doing. So give us the wisdom of a compliance person that can help the commercial teams to understand the context, and also about what can you do to make the commercial teams more compliant but also agile.
Yeah, I would also want to hear that.
I know that's the thing I deal with every day. So let me start with our founder statement. It's 100 years back. He says that give them the quality. That's the best advertisement in the world. I think it's Milton Hershey who founded the Hershey company. His entire philosophy of building a product is you can build a brand, but if you don't give a quality, you cannot sustain in the market. Now, in the world of agility, it is very important that you don't forget the basic. I keep on reinforcing the word basic because compliance and the food safety are the critical pillar for the food business. Now, you can see a growth very rapidly, and then there's a fall also which happens. And change is the only thing which is constant. You need to work with the change. And we as a compliance leader, we need to ensure that we need to keep on changing your hat from a functional leader to a business leader and help drive business. We cannot be in a stage where you say, okay, this is written in the line, this you just follow it. Now, you need to interpret well. You need to convince to your leadership team that what is the cost of quality if you don't do the job well. Now, there are multiple examples I can quote, and there are multiple food industry which got closed because they are not able to follow the compliance thing. You guys know, at least in India, the Maggi one. What is truth is very different, but one fine day the issue become big and Maggi has to recall all the product from the market. I was in Coke when this pesticide issue happened. So it's just a flick of time, something get popped up and you need to go back and ensure that the compliance is met. Now, you can do shortcuts, you can bypass regulation, you can launch a lot of things. One fine day somebody picks you up. The cost of that is much higher than the cost you spend in ensuring the compliance. And as a leader, when I go to my commercial team or a supply chain team where they want to launch product in next 3 days, I'll say, guys, okay, I also want to launch in next 3 days, but please ensure that these are my 5 basic compliance you need to ensure. Because if you don't do that, you cannot make a sustainable brand. And in fact, I was talking to Mridula when we were sitting, and we said that we need to create a brand which is sustainable. There are a lot of startups coming, going. There are very few startups who are able to sustain them for a long time because the proof of principle of managing compliance, managing quality is very standard. They don't want to go in a rat race of growing by 200%, growing by 500%, because if you get into that rat race, you find that flick of growth for a certain amount of time, then it starts falling it down. So there are a lot of products who came into the market, just make a boom, and after 2-3 months, it just slow down. There are few products who are able to sustain that market. And with new world which is coming in, business disruption is going to happen. And I think with multinational or startup, it's the same scenario because one fine day somebody is coming. And honestly, I was watching your video on Facebook that day, and I was like very curious to see what you have done in terms of ensuring the food safety. Because I was like, okay, from where the oil is coming, from where the food is falling. I think good that you touched upon a point, and happy to help you if you really want on that. I think that's important because When you are designing, it looks good from outside, but if he is not able to do the right thing to ensure that what food you are cooking is not getting accumulated inside the equipment, if it remain for small time, you will fail a issue. You will realize that this machine is not working. So basic proof of principle, you need to ensure that the food safety compliance has to be made. Then you build a brand. Now for the diapers, clear example. So why people choose some brand, why people don't choose some brand? One is affordability, other is the quality. Now there are people who wants affordable diapers, who is okay with somewhat leakage. There are people who don't want a leakage at all. There are another category of people who want no leakage, good quality, no rashes. So you need to build a brand accordingly. So that's why you see talking about the category of a diapers, which company needs to evolve, because you need to serve each consumer. Every consumer has a different requirement, different expectation, and so there is a mass product and a premium product. So when somebody comes to me and says, I want to launch a premium product for this segment of a category, my design standard become according to that process without compromising the basic. So it doesn't mean that the basic is for. The compliance requirement, when you charge consumer a higher price, you need to deliver that quality. If you don't do that, just because you're a big company, nobody's going to come back.
Yeah, in
Hope
fact,
I answered the question.
yeah, in a way, yes. So in fact, big companies have bigger compliance responsibilities, right? They are expected to do a lot of compliance. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about, is there a way that compliance as a mindset can be embedded in the organization so that the growth does not come at the cost of compliance, or the compliance does not happen at the cost of growth? So is that something that you see happening in the industry, in your company, that compliance is part of the product development and also part of the commercial?
So normally in multinational, there are, like, when you build a business plan, there are pillars. So this is what my pillars. I don't know about other company, but as a Hershey, quality, food safety, and compliance are the base. These are my base. There is nothing that I want to use as a priority. This is something which we want to drive as a compliance at every stage of the product development, or you are getting into the product market. Now, there was a lot of typical question being asked, oh, food safety standard for US or food safety standard for Europe or food safety standard for India is different. No. The food safety standard for any country across the world cannot be differentiated, because you are creating that non-compliance to the human health. Now quality, of course, every country has a different requirement. If I go to Japan, my quality standard level is like 500% higher. If I go to Korea, every pack gets checked. So I don't know whether people know that when you import product in Japan or Korea, the customs checks each and every pack to ensure that it meets the quality of the product. In fact, I was surprised. I went to Saudi, and they said that a small dent on a carton box is also not acceptable, because aesthetic is something critical for the Arabians. So it's different for different countries, but I think food safety, quality, compliance never change, and the base never change. I think many company tries to do so, and they failed very badly.
Thanks for that answer. Yatin, how do you see the role of technology as a way to build a product that can compete in a space that is very competitive, where there are large players? So, what's your thought on how are you looking at technology as a way to build that moat for you, which will help you to compete?
Yeah, so so far, right? So there's the hardware development process, which is typically a waterfall, meaning you do this, do that, do that, do that, right? And there's a software development process, which is agile, right? So, and we, being a startup, it was always conversation topic saying that how do we take some of this software methodologies and put it in the hardware? So we have done it to some extent. Waterfalls still remain, but our prototyping, testing, all that has become agile thing. So the prototyping, the testing, and then reverse back, right? The entire circle. So that remain as a waterfall, but inside that we have adopted a lot of agile thing. And also, like when we develop the team, the problem with hardware development is each person has a different capability. Now, if you go by that, then you are slow, because if that person is working on something, you can't give another work. Like entire team has to wait. So we have developed the capability so that like mechanical anything that anyone can do. Like, and with a weekly design reviews, everyone knows everything. So it's not like tomorrow if different person has to work on that assembly, he has no idea. So those are some of the agility we have put in as a practices so that we can move fast. And obviously the Trello and Nifty and all those agile, Jira, those agile frameworks we use to track even our hardware development process. Yeah, so technologies are there because software guys are really using it. It's just that what is the way we can leverage that and put it in the hardware development, because hardware development is inherently very slow, because you do development, you release for test prototyping, it will come after a month if you're lucky, otherwise 2 months, then you again do testing. There's little for, like let's say there's an error, 1 error, it is a 3 months loss, right? So another thing we brought in the team is saying that error free is more important than doing it quickly. So if I say that this is a deadline, engineers will do night out and meet the deadline, there is a 1 error somewhere. And then that means entire 3 months get wasted. So we also realized early on that this is a big problem. And we came up saying that you take your time. So after you say my development is done, we have a 1 week for reviews. Like do the review, entire engineering team work. We have external people who also reviews it. So that help us actually increase our speed, because in hardware the speed is actually error free.
Interesting. So let me ask a question to all of you, because agility and scale. So we've spoken about processes, we've spoken about a lot of technologies. Let's talk about people, right? So, because really it's people sitting at the cross section of this, right? So what are organizations doing about managing, so to speak, this artificial conflict, if you like, between agility and speed? How are you driving this conversation in your organization? So let's go one by one.
Yep. So for us, what is very important is, was the starting objective or the vision of the organization. For us, for example, in Kimberly-Clark, our starting point is we have to delight the consumer. If that is the starting point, then every decision that we make will be with that objective, that we have to delight with the consumer. If delighting the consumer can happen quickly also, by tomorrow, more than happy. But if delighting the consumer means that we'll have to wait for a month, then it means that we'll have to wait for a month. So if you ask me, that is the starting point. Some of the examples or some of the pointers that I will mention, and at least that how we are working upon is, in an e-commerce environment or in any organization, you'll get the feedback from the consumer very quickly. So for example, if the consumer is not liking your product, why is the consumer not liking? You can get it from an Amazon review, you can get it from your own consumer helpline. Every fortnightly, we will internally have a discussion of what are the negative reviews coming and why are they coming? What's the specific reason? Then we will go back to our product to understand, is there something that we can improve in the product to improve or to reduce the negative reviews that are coming in. And those are some of the things that you start. But if you'll see, the starting point for us has always been, what is the objective? If the objective is delight the consumer, then everything kinds of flows with it.
And that's what is driving the culture in the organization.
Yes.
Okay. Ambol.
I think the same thing. So what do you exactly want as an organization? So coming to Hershey, so we really want to protect consumer brand, people, and the product. Now, whatever we design or whatever we innovate, that's the first thing which is in everybody's mind, that, oh, we want to create something which is sustainable. Let's not go into the multiple piece, bigger, better, fewer. And our focus is always on that, because you can launch 100 product in a year. You can launch one product in a year. That one product can cater the 100 product revenue. And that's where we need to focus. What exactly you want as a company, as a strategy. And I think the bigger company are more focused toward more sustainable product rather than creating a shortcut. Now I know my friend in e-com wants in and out, which create a buzz in the market, and same thing happen with any FMCG, because this is a market requirement at this moment. You need to have in and out product which comes in, goes out. You need to build a pipeline. You need to be very clear what exactly, which product you want to be for a long sustainable thing, which product we want to go for in and out, and how we want to launch it, how is the flexibility, and how we want to ensure that you're very focused on your strategy. If your strategy is focused, and I think thankfully the multinational has the advantage of having a build strategy. There are people sitting who works only on strategy, who works for a different country to understand what exactly looks good for the company, who works on data to understand how the consumer behavior is changing. And within the organization, that's the culture. So we always talk, we start with any discussion in saying that, hey, this is what we are here. Now let's talk about it. Let's not jump on a conclusion that some other company is doing, that's why we want to do it. Do you really want to do it? Is it something which fits in your strategy, or it doesn't fit in your strategy? If it is not fitting in your strategy, there is no meaning of running behind just because somebody is running.
Great point. Mithila, you want to?
We have two goals defined. One is not goals, but like the what is it that the company is going to stand behind. The culture that we look for is, one, why can't we do it? And two is customer delight. And I think both of them move in different directions. Customer delight, making sure there are systems, processes in place, and the right product is reaching the consumer. So every product or any kind of action that we take, that question is asked, is it end of the day tying down to customer delight? Will the customer be happy if we do this, or are we taking a shortcut? It could be the simple thing of logistics getting delayed by a day. Will the customer be unhappy if his shipments get delayed a day later? Is it the right thing to do? The other side of it is, which is for agility, not for, it ties into agility, is why can't we do it? If, let's say, somebody comes up with an idea to say, let's create this product, which does not exist. We've created our proprietary technology in audio last year. In the entire world, there are a handful of brands, like there is Dolby, there is Sony has LDAC, Apple has spatial audio. There are not even like 10 brands that have a proprietary technology. When it was first proposed in the company, people said it's not doable. It's very hard to create a proprietary technology. That mindset of saying, why can't we do it? What is it that is stopping us? And we figured it out, we've done it, it took us a little longer than expected, but we were able to launch it. So those two things, and the third, which helps people to do these two things, is giving them the freedom to fail. Yeah. We tell our teams, you try, you put in your best efforts, it's all right if you fail. You will not be penalized because you've tried and you were finally not able to get that product out, or not able to fix that process. As long as the right kind of work was put in, it's all right to fail, has helped us be both agile, but also make sure the right product is always going to the customer.
Thank you so much. That's very insightful. Yathan, you want to add?
Yeah, so for us, see, mostly we have been development, right? So our simple thinking was bias for action, meaning don't waste time in discussion. If you feel that like you get it done. So let's say there is a owner of one assembly and there is some failure coming in, right? So he coming in, and then we meeting and discussing how to solve the failure. We say that you have idea, you implement and get it done, right? So my simple messaging is like most of decisions are reversible, meaning there's not, for a startup, most of decisions are two-way door. There's no one-way door, right? Most of time. So you take a call, you get it done, rather than putting across many people in the discussion room and keep on discussing same thing. If it is a two-way street, just get it done. Like and anyway, design reviews, it anyway will give a question you, but don't waste time in discussion is the messaging. Like and this start from hiring itself. Like we want people. Sometimes we have not had experienced people because we felt that they slow us down, right? And we felt that youngsters below 30 is what our team is compromised of, and simple messaging is get it done, have a bias for action. If something goes wrong, we can definitely correct it next time. So that's how we kind of like our team is aligned to. And when we were doing trial, the issue come, the engineer go and fix the issue, right? They go to their house, they go talk to them. In fact, we have a community of our user, and all the engineers are there. So if any issue someone posts there, engineer feel the pain, right? Direct customer pain. They can hear the exact code the customer is writing, and that directly comes to it. And then next day when I go to office,
It's a problem with the new age now, because there are the news, bad news flows much faster than the good news, and whether it is correct or not, also nobody verify. People just jump on a conclusion that, oh, lint has a heavy metals, let's not use it, boycott lint. Same thing happened with Maggie, right? So as a company, what we can do is to ensure that first compliance. What is written in the standard has to be followed. There is no shortcut for it. Now, create awareness. I think you might have seen a lot of multinational, whenever this such issue happen, they come up with a very strong statement because they are confident that they are not doing anything wrong. And that's where the brand building and the trust is required. How Maggie is ramped up once they got out of it, because they voluntarily recall. They said, okay, if there's a doubt in my consumer mind, I don't want to sell the product. They just recalled. FSSI doesn't ask them to recall. They recalled on their own. And when they come back, the sale just jumped up again. Now everybody is eating Maggie. Why? It's a brand trust. So you need to create a trust in the consumer eyes. And I think I always use a statement whenever I talk to my team saying, the moment I see my daughter drinking a Hershey milkshake with the closed eyes, that's the trust I'm building in my consumer. These things keep on coming. So these challenges are always there. One fine day you will see Hershey, one fine day you see Mondelez, one fine day you see Kimberly Clark. The only thing we can defend our case is saying that, hey, we are compliant, we are confident, and we can go back to consumers saying that, hey guys, these are the proof of principle. These are the basic steps we follow, and we are compliant. Having said that, it creates a lot of disruption all the time, but you cannot control it. So there is something like circle of influence and circle of out of control. So you can only control things which is under your influence. So we focus on that part. The world is changing, we cannot control that. One fine day, one person comes and say that I found this in product. You cannot go and run behind him, right? So you need to do your basic stuffs clear, be confident about it, and that's the job of a compliance leader.
So that's a good example of how compliance actually allows the brand to move faster. Because if you don't build that trust, anything that you do, if it's going to be looked at with suspicion, you can't go anywhere with it, right? So that's a great example. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I had two questions, both for Mridula. First was on women in leadership. So even today we're discussing that diversity and representation is a little low, and you've done cross-border transactions, you've dealt with multiple geographies as well, and in such a tech-focused industry also. So just how were the conversations on the tables? Have you received any pushback, or how did you navigate that? And the second one, again, on the tech thing, you've mentioned proprietary technology, you've mentioned that you have a made in a portfolio. your costs are 25% lower than importing from China. So what kind of tech, what kind of skilled labor, what went into developing all of this? Thank you.
Okay, the second question is too long. To get to 20%, it took us 4.5 years. uh, let's just say that we've gone through a lot of efficiencies, moved from a lot of inefficiencies to efficiencies. The first year, our cost was probably 30-40% higher than importing from China because we didn't have any Chinese partnerships. We have a team of 1,500 people at Vivi, every single person Indian. 99% of the people have been trained at Vivi because there is nobody we could hire from. So we made a lot of blunders, a lot of inefficiencies, but we worked through it, learned through it, and we've reached that stage. A very slow process. There is no like one answer I can give you in a minute, but we've improved efficiencies at every level. We've actually hired students like you, fresh graduates out of colleges. Again, we've given them that space to fail, but like figure out how to design an audio chamber. A lot of products in our first few years did not see the light of the day because our teams were failing, and we would not ever launch a product that we know was bad, but we let them fail. There was a lot of cost that we incurred. Having said that, putting in all of that R&D, putting in all of that work has moved our teams where now, if I ask my team to design an audio chamber, they'll do it in a few days. Probably in a week, I'll have a new design for an audio. They know how the how sound flows. All that is like built over years. The first question, most of the time in electronics, I'm the only person sitting on the panel. So I don't know if it's an advantage or a disadvantage. I don't see it either way. I have a strong voice. I can make my voice be heard. So did I face gender bias? I did. Not with peers, not with vendors, but at different places. To give you an example, I walked into a bank one day to close an account that my father opened for me when I was probably like 18, 19, before I left of the US. So the banker there asked me, what do you do? I said, I have a company. So he looked at me and said, oh, your father's company. I said, no, I have a company. He said, who all are there? I said, me and my husband opened. Oh, your husband's company. And many times I was not taken seriously and I had to actually open my mouth and start speaking for people to realize, okay, I know my shit. I really know what I'm doing. And I'm not somebody that just has daddy's money or husband's money written over it. That I did face. However, I still feel I'm lucky in a way. Like I said, I have a strong voice. I have a very strong ecosystem. I was brought up in a household where there was no option to say, I'm a girl, I'm a woman, I can take it easy. We were never given the choice. My sister is a doctor, oncologist. So we were never given that option. So I don't come from that mindset. What I've done, at Mivi, you will find a very diverse, extremely diverse team. The reason being, there is only one criteria we hire based on. We don't have any diversity inclusions, but we hire based on the right person and the best person for the job. We don't have any quotas for women. We don't have any quotas for men. You will find almost, at least from 20 to 23 states, we have people working at Vivi. If not the entire country, we might miss a few, but 23 states we have working at Vivi. So we don't look at region, religion, gender. We only hire based on, is this person the best person for the job? And over years, I've gotten a lot of requests from multiple departments saying, we don't want women. We don't want from a particular religion. These were requests directly made to me because people were saying that the answers that they were giving as to why is, this job is hard. We don't think women can do it. They have to stay late hours. We don't think women should do it. And my answer would always be, let them decide. If a woman feels like, okay, I don't want to stay late hours, she'll not apply for the job. Why are you so concerned about them? Don't be so concerned about them. Let them have their struggle. And that has helped us really have a very diverse environment. And we have very strong policies for women. We have additional leaves for women because they are physical, they go through the menstrual cycles. They need more days off, which actually have to be implemented across colleges, across universities and schools. We have additional leaves for mothers. No matter how much a father steps in, it will always be a little more burdensome on the mothers with children. So we support things like that. Like, we want to create an environment in which a woman can work and prove herself. I don't do any additional favors other than that. Just create that environment. Everything else is purely based on merit, and that has created diversity for us.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful answer.
So good afternoon. My name is Harishankar Menon. My question is for the entire panel relating to innovation and agility. Most of the time in Indian consumerism, there's a philosophy that to bring something new to the Indian market, you have to go either to China or the US, see how the consumers are interacting with the new launches there. And if it is successful, then bring the product back to India with a little bit of changes. Do you guys agree to that statement, or do you think it's time for Indian consumerism to move on? And if so, how do you convince your investors to actually invest in R&D?
I can answer that. So actually, what I think is that entire phenomena, right, where whatever is successful in US or China, you bring it in, has tapering off, right? So we have like entire quick commerce phenomena, right? It happened first in India, right? And let's say a startup like Udan, it actually happened first in India, right? Like we are building a new kind of product first in India. So I think in last 5 years, we are everyone, like entire startup ecosystem, are moving away from looking at what has happened in US or China, because everyone understand things are different here, right? Like the like Indian urban cities are very dense. How the Kirana shop works is very different. So many startup like Miso is another example which happened only in India, right? So I think now everyone understand that we have to contextualize consumer need which is there in India and come up with innovation, and it is happening across, right? So right now very few new company or new success you see which are like coming from India or China, because geopolitically they are very, very different, and you have to contextualize before you build here.
Yeah, one example that we are doing in Kimberly Clark. So obviously, globally, Kimberly Clark, how we are structured is 70-80% of the countries we treat it as enterprise markets, and there are remaining 30% countries where we treat it as separate. Within the enterprise markets, India is one of the countries that is there. For all the innovation that now will go into all the enterprise markets, India is treated as the lead country. So we'll innovate here, we'll see what is working, what is not working, and then if it reapplies to some of the other 70 countries is what would be replicated. So as Yatin was saying, that is a big shift that is happening. The reason is obviously with the growth that is coming in India. Everyone globally is seeing that a market like US is kind of saturated. It has come to a limit where the growths are not happening there. Where are the growths coming from? India obviously across categories is one of the country where the growth is coming from. So if every organization has to grow, you will have to start inventing, innovating in a country which is helping you grow.
Any more questions? So thanks a lot to the panel. Wonderful discussion. And it really brings the point alive that we are not looking at agility at the cost of growth or scale at the cost. It is agility at scale. And we looked at different models across different businesses, different categories, different context of businesses, right? Startups to, a very thriving business to very old, centuries old businesses. And it's a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, everyone.